110th meeting between the Tar Heels and the Blue Devils. Adam, these two things that I'm about to say are evergreen for the Tar Heels for the rest of this year. I think Carolina has a good chance to win the game if it, A, stops the run, and B, stays diversified offensively. If Carolina does those two things, I think it's going to have a really good chance to win. I feel pretty confident that even against this really good defense, and Duke's defense is good, as is Clemson's, as is NC State's. Even against those defenses, I feel like Carolina's offense is elite. Its stats say it is. Our eyes say it is. Only one game this year did it not feel that way, and that was Virginia. And for whatever reason, the Tar Heels were just off that day. And I do think that happens sometimes. So assuming that the Tar Heels play, they're not going to run up 50 points and 600 yards, but they're also still really good. And so I do think Carolina's offense will be able to do something. The defense is the biggest question. Can Carolina stop the run is the question this week and moving forward. Because Duke's going to run, Duke's down to their, assuming that they're not playing games with their personnel, they're down to their third-string quarterback. He did not look great against Wake Forest, Grayson Loftus. Now, he did make a couple big throws. He looked more comfortable as the game went on, made a big touchdown throw when Duke was down in the fourth quarter to tie it. So it is not as though he is totally incapable of playing the position. He is not, in my opinion, nearly as good or refined as Riley Leonard, their normal starter for Duke, who has been injured. Duke is going to rely on the run game because they'd be absolutely insane not to. They are going to run the football and play defense and punt if they have to because they've got a great punter. I didn't say, I meant they're going to play field position. Like they're going to run it, punt it, and play defense. And they're good enough at those things to beat teams that way. So Carolina has to stop the run. The Tar Heels can't have one of these punt games like they did against Virginia, too, where they're punting for 20 yards and Duke's punting for 50 every time. And again, Duke's got the best punter in the league, Porter Wilson. So, Adam, can the offense stay diversified and move the football? Can they stop the run? Those two things will decide this one, in my opinion.
The point about Carolina's offense, the only thing that concerns me a little is I think we would have said those exact same things going into the last 3 games of last year when it looked like the Carolina offense was elite and could score on anybody, and you thought, well, perhaps the Tar Heels can just outscore these last 3 opponents. I think you kind of think that this year. But last year what happened was the Tar Heels had a little trouble scoring there at the end of the year against some of the better defenses. But this is a different offense.
It's a different offense, and I think it's better. I do. I think Carolina is a couple things different offensively this year. One, they are not as reliant on one player in the pass game. Now, they need Nate McCollum to be healthy and to be, quite honestly, better than he has been the last couple of games because I think he's a good player that has not played very well. And, of course, he didn't play against Campbell. And he hadn't been 100%. So you need him healthy and productive. Tez Walker's good. Bryson Nesbitt has quietly been putting together a really impressive stretch of games. And then, of course, there's the big difference if Carolina can run the ball much better this year. And, Adam, they run it in a different way. Mac Brown has said it. Corey Gaynor alludes to it in our conversation with him. I've heard the coaches talk about this a lot. I've heard the offensive coordinator, Chip Lindsey, talk about it publicly and privately. Carolina was more side-to-side run game in the past. The Tar Heels are much more north and south. It fits their personnel. It fits who they want to be. And they've got an absolute beast at the running back position, Omarion Hampton. That doesn't mean they're going to have a ton of success. It means that they have the capability of having success. The more I think about Hampton, He and Jawar Jordan, I think, are going to be the 2 first-team All-ACC backs. Like, he's not going to because Carolina's not in the top 5. He could be an All-America. Like, his numbers are that good. So, and maybe Duke shuts Carolina down and out. I would be stunned if it happened, and that's nothing negative about Duke. It's about what I think about Carolina's offense. Now, here's what I do think. I mean, Duke is old. They are physical. And here's the best part if you're a Duke fan about their defense.
If you're a Duke fan and you're listening to this.
Right, okay. Or if you're a Carolina fan and you need to know what to look out for. What Duke has done extraordinarily well defensively this year is when it's come down to the moment that matters, they've made the play almost every time. Whether it's a turnover, whether it's blocking a kick, whether it's getting a 4th down stop, whatever it is, they've done it. I mean, consistently. That Clemson game, I know it was months ago. I mean, Adam, Clemson was first and goal at the 1, first and goal at the 7, and then I had it, I think, at the 1 again, or inside the 5, and they turned it over twice and missed a field goal. Teams miss a bunch of field goals against Duke. I mean, they've blocked some, and for some, like Wake Forest did everything they could to lose that game last week. They missed 2 short field goals. They had an interception late where the ball just like slipped out of the quarterback's hands and floated in the air and went right to a Duke player. It's been that kind of year for their defense, mostly because Duke's made it all happen. I've been extraordinarily impressed. I mean, like, they had to get a turnover on that drive against Wake when Wake turned it over. Wake was at midfield, was going to go score. And somehow the ball slips out of the guy's hand. It's just been that way. I don't have an explanation for it, but they've made it every time. There's going to be a moment where Carolina's offense has it 3rd and goal from the 6-yard line or something. And Carolina's got to win those moments in this game.
I am on board with Duke being an above-average team. How much credit do you think Duke gets for being Duke and the fact that people don't expect them to be above average? Like, their non-conference schedule's not good, which is where a lot of their wins come from. They have the win over Clemson in the first game of the season when Clemson looked completely inept. Since then...
And Clemson didn't look completely inept until it got to the red zone, and then it did look inept.
Since that day, most of the good teams they've played have defeated them.
Yes, I agree with that. They beat Lehigh. They beat Northwestern, who's not very good. They won at UConn, who's not very good. I think part of the credit, and I agree with you. I think some of the credit is people still think of Duke football as the comically bad Duke football of the 2000s where they were just terrible. So I do think they get credit for that, for being better than that. But I also think they are a well-coached, physical team. And people who like football, like who really like they like well-coached physical teams.
Like Corey Gaynor.
Yeah, Corey Gaynor, if he was a neutral observer, would be like, I like the way this team plays. Because I do think that's true. Like, they play the way that football guys like football being played. And to their credit, their losses to the better teams they've played have been competitive. They lost to Notre Dame in the final minutes. They led early in the fourth quarter against Florida State. Really, the only game that they were not close in was Louisville. And Louisville it was just one of those days for Duke. Louisville was really good, Duke was really bad, and Louisville won the game handily. And, of course, I think a lot of Duke's problems are that Riley Leonard is hurt. And when he was healthy, they were very, very good. And he played the Louisville game. But, Adam, I'm going to tell you, he took so many hits all year long. He has taken so many hits. He runs it a lot. But I mean, like that Louisville game, I wanted to be in Apollo Creed's corner, like throw the towel in. Like throw it in, Rocky. Stop letting him get hit. I mean, he was getting hit all over the place. And I think that's why he's gotten hurt. I mean, he's gotten hurt twice. You never want anybody to get hurt. He's gotten hurt twice. And it's because he gets hit so much. And their backup, Henry Beelan, is hurt. I'm not even really sure when that happened. I think it was in the Florida State game. And so that's a long answer of I think they're well coached. I think they're physical. They do get credit because people assume Duke is bad. But I think this is a good football team. It's not as good as it could be because Leonard isn't available. But I think it's a good team. It's an old team, just like the Tar Heels are old. They have old guys. I mean, this defense, Dwayne Carter's been there forever. R.J. Oben, forever. Dorian Mausi, forever. Jalen Stinson, forever. So I think they are a very solid team. If Carolina stops the run and stays diversified offensively, they're going to win the game.
Yeah, the path to winning is very simple. Assuming Riley Leonard doesn't walk out there, which honestly, would that shock me? No.
No, and he is still listed as the starter on the listed depth chart. Now, I don't know, like some teams put it out one time and never change it. That may be what Duke does. I don't know. It doesn't appear as though he is going to play, but you never know.
Wouldn't stun me, and that would change my opinion of them. But, I mean, the path to winning seems to be get an early lead, get a turnover to Carolina's secondary has 12 interceptions. That's a lot.
That is an underrated part of Carolina's defense because, understandably, the whole narrative of the defense now is that fourth quarter against Georgia Tech. Tar Heels have forced a lot of turnovers. They are number one in the league, and I'll double check it, Adam. I think it is third in the nation in turnover margin. They've protected the ball pretty well. They've had a couple important turnovers, but not a lot of turnovers. And then they've forced a lot of miscues for the opposition. They have more interceptions now and have had more interceptions for a couple games than they had all of last year. And it's different guys. I mean, Huzzy has some, and Marcus Allen just got one. Gio Biggers, Don Chapman all have interceptions. I mean, so multiple guys. Cedric Gray has one, I think, or Power Eccles definitely does. So multiple guys are doing it. But, yes, Carolina's done a good job in that regard. And they can force some turnovers if Grayson Loftus is the quarterback.
Which is why if you get ahead by multiple scores, in theory, you limit Duke's ability to just hand the ball off all day. You make Loftus throw the ball, and I think at that point you feel pretty good. He completed like 36% of his passes against Wake Forest, and you feel like your chances are pretty good. Some of those completions might be to you as the defense. And in turn, getting a multiple score lead gives you the chance as the Tar Heels to hand the ball off more to Hampton, who's a big part of why Carolina takes such good care of the ball, because he does. You feel good putting it in his hands because he hasn't turned it over. And maybe you're able to just ride this thing out on the ground, not have to take a lot of chances. That's the path of least resistance to a win at Kenan Stadium.
Tar Heels tied for second nationally in turnover margin. They have forced 19 turnovers and only lost 7. So very good numbers there for Carolina.
You talked about him earlier, but if Drake May wasn't on the team, they'd be selling a lot of Amari and Hampton jerseys on Franklin Street. He's over 1,000 yards, and there's only 6 other backs in the country who are over 1,000 yards. He's one of the best running backs in the country.
I always find it interesting to listen to the opposing head coaches, and normally when somebody is talking about the Tar Heels this year, it goes something like this. Really talented team, all starts with the quarterback. He's a pro guy, can make every throw, athletic enough to run. He's really good. The biggest difference with this team from the last year is the running back. That's how it goes. I mean, like almost every single time, that's how like the opening statement of the other coach about Carolina goes, is that we all understand, and we're not trying to undersell Drake May. He might be the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. First time ever that Carolina would have the number 1 pick. Right? Wait, Lawrence Taylor? Sorry, LT.
Come on the pod. Talk to us about it.
Yeah, come on. First time an offensive player. How's that, Adam? And which, by the way, he should be. Drake May should be the number 1 pick. I'm not going to tell the Chicago Bears using the Carolina Panthers pick how to choose it. But anyway, the difference is Hampton. Because you can't drop back and sell out to stop May, because he will just pound you if you do. But having said all of that, these are, I think it's the best 3 defenses Carolina will face this year are going to be the final 3. Duke, Clemson, and State. They are all excellent defensively. And we'll just have to see how Carolina does. But you certainly like who you're going into the matchup with if you're the Tar Heels on that side of the ball. And it's going to, I mean, if you just like football, if you're Corey Gaynor, like you should like, when Carolina has the ball the next 3 weeks, those will be elite groups going against one another. It should be interesting to watch if you just like football.
I do like football when the Tar Heels win.
Yeah, right.
When the Tar Heels do not win.
Tar Heels, listen to us. It's when you win that we like it.
Yeah.
Not when you don't win. That's not as fun. Adam, let's see. What else? What else do we need to talk about? 8 o'clock, late start. We'll be on the air at 7 p.m. Duke can run it. They got some good backs now. Jordan Waters, Jaquez Moore. Although Moore, it looked like he got shaken up late in the Wake Forest game. Like the last drive. I mean, I don't know if he's hurt or not. Duke, well, I don't think they really tell anybody. But Waters has 10 rushing touchdowns. He's a fifth-year player. He's been there a long time. Moore is a little smaller, faster. He's really explosive in the open field. They got Jalen Coleman, who's good. They got this other guy, Peyton Jones, who's really fast. He doesn't play yet a lot for them. But they got some good guys at that running back position. And their offensive line is old. I mean, Graham Barton, Maurice McIntyre, who's a Jacksonville guy, and Jacob Monk, who's Quincy Monk's nephew. Those guys have been at Duke for a million years. A million years. Barton's a senior. He's been hurt, missed the last couple games. McIntyre's a fifth-year player, and Monk's a fifth-year player. So they've got, and then their other two are transfers to graduates. So the starting O-line, at least listed, is senior, graduate. So they're old. Now they're transfers, Harvard and Stanford. Fellow ACC member, Stanford. And honestly, let's not act like if Harvard called and said, guys, I'd like to join the ACC, the presidents of Virginia and Syracuse would be scrambling as hard as they could to get the Crimson on in. Guys, can you imagine the cocktail parties we can have with the Harvard president?
You telling us we might get to play in the bean pot? Sign us up right now. We're in.
So, it's going to be a good ball game. I'm looking forward to it.
I think, as you mentioned, Duke being well coached, a thing that gives you a little pause from the Carolina side is that the Duke coaches have had the opportunity to see how Loftus succeeded late in that Wake Forest game, what he is best at and does well, and probably implement more of that this week and craft what they're trying to do a little more to him rather than him trying to do what they were trying to do with other personnel.
Yeah. And they played Thursday last week, so they've had a little extra time. Not that it's a huge amount of time. I mean, obviously, they've done all their Carolina scout well before that, but they have had a little extra time as well. And stop the run, tackle in space, all these things that have given the Tar Heels issues at times, that will be what decides this game.